Hello again for those whom I've already met early on before. I will try not to double myself, but as Hauke said, my name is Jochen Kemmer. I'm working for the Center for Access to Football in Europe as a project man for the so-called Disability Access Officer project. My role consists in supporting FAs, leagues and clubs in the implementation of the Disability Access Officer role. And today I will give you an overview what CAFE does, what is accessibility, and what is the role of the Disability Access Officer. So, even if I repeat myself, for those who haven't been here earlier before, CAFE is like was set up in 2009, and we are UEFA Corporate Social Responsibility associate partner, and we are working very closely with the UEFA, still since the beginning with the same goals, working towards a more inclusive and accessible game for all, using the unique power of football. So we try to make football stadiums accessible. In the beginning, we've been working mostly on the major events of the UEFA: Champions League final, the Euro, the EuroLeague final, Super Cup final, and now we're working more closely with the clubs and with the FAs to make this really happen, make football accessible to all in every football stadium in Europe. At the same time, we're trying to promote the employment of disabled people within football. We will start together with a partner an inclusive student program at the end of the year, so that people have as well, disabled people have as well the chance to study and work in football afterwards. We have several activities already, for example, with the Ukrainian Federation, with the Russian Federation, who started employing disabled people. We are currently turning a video with a club in Germany, Fortuna Düsseldorf, who have hired two disabled persons as a disability access officer, and we are turning a video with them to show what has to be done in a club to make it accessible and the recruitment policies inclusive. Giving some arguments why access is important. Before coming to any of those arguments, once again I want to mention that access is a human right. It has been considered and agreed in the UN Convention 1948, equal treatment of everybody, and nearly all states adopted into their national constitution. So it's something which is a human right and therefore should not be questioned at all. And then once again, it concerns like a lot of people. At least 40% of the population require good access at any given time. So I mentioned earlier before, this can be a senior person, elderly person. This can be a pregnant a woman. This can be somebody who has a temporary disability. So it concerns a lot of people. More than 60% of all persons have a disabled person in their closer environment, and obviously you want to enjoy the matches together with your friends, and so if the stadium is not accessible, this will not be the case. Then disabled people constitute the largest minority group, so it's 15% of the world population, and nearly 100 million disabled persons all already in Europe, and with the aging society this will even increase more and more. So yeah, even in Europe you can say just to guess, if like you have 35% of all people who are football fans, you have 35 million potential fans, disabled football fans. 50% of all of disabled people have never attended a public event or a sporting event, so showing that unfortunately access and inclusion has not yet been really put into practice everywhere. Yeah, we had a survey like 1.5 years ago at Cafe, and unfortunately the results of the survey, which we had with disabled fans all around Europe, the results were pretty negative in terms of that more than 40% of all fans said that they had a bad experience with their club concerning access and inclusion. So a lot of discrimination, unfortunately, still happening, and we hope to be able to work together and improve in that for the future. At the same time, there's as well from our studies, there's a big wish to change that, both on the side of the disabled fans. You see here 80% of disabled fans that going to a football game is very important to them. At the same time, a study saying from Forbes saying that 97% of all Europeans are of the opinion that it has to be done more to improve access and inclusion, and to improve the inclusion of disabled people. Another good reason, accessible stadium venues are economically attractive. I mentioned the huge potential of over 30 million potential football fans in Europe. At the moment, according to a study from UEFA, there are already more than 500,000 active disabled football fans. So active means which are going on a regular basis to football games. So with the still big potential between the 500,000 active fans and the potential of, let's say, 35 million disabled fans in Europe. I mentioned earlier as well the example of Poland and Ukraine, where we had suddenly, from kind of out of nowhere, from a country who's saying that there's no disabled fans, disabled people at all in the country, suddenly turning up after communication more than 1,000 disabled fans on a football event. We had similar stories in Bucharest for the EuroLeague final, where we had as well more than 1,000 disabled fans watching that game. And we generally see from clubs, once those changes have been made in a stadium for whatever reason, then the changes are just forcing the club to think into more solutions, and the response of the fans are very, very positive, so more and more disabled fans come and join the games. Once again, football can work as a catalyst for social change. I think we are very aware that football is powerful, that the images go all around the world, and that we can change something firstly in football, but as well in society. If we make better inclusion of disabled fans within football, this will help the society to make changes as well in other areas. So, what are we doing in detail? So we're working with clubs, together with architects, together to make football stadiums accessible. Lots of you have in front of you this guidebook, this handbook for all, Access for All, which gives really good information about how making a football stadium accessible. The guide is available on our website as well in 14 different languages, not in Icelandic, I'm sorry, but there's still a possibility to translate it if somebody is motivated. So we work with clubs together. They often send us like their drafts of the stadium plans, and we give our advice. And clubs work together with disability organizations in implementing the recommendations we have in our stadium. We do stadium access appraisals for the bigger events, and we just created a training program for FAs, for disability organizations who want to make their stadiums more accessible, and that they conduct their stadium access appraisals themselves. We do, as this morning, like trainings for FAs, for NAs about the topic of disability inclusion and etiquette. And the idea is that the FAs and the clubs become trainers themselves. So the idea, we train you, and then you train the stewards in your club on those topics, for example. We work on the topic of audio descriptive commentary. So we have training programs where we train in every country commentators who provide audio descriptive services. And we just launched, in 2 weeks, we will launch the European Network for Audio Descriptive Commentary, where we have really the specialists from all countries we are already working with, where you can, for example, ask your technical questions, how to set it up in this forum. We work together with disabled fans. First of all, we do research on the needs, what is the current situation, what are the wishes, how to make a football stadium more accessible, and to raise as well the voice of fans. We work together in setting up disabled supporters associations, which are fan groups which try to represent the voice of disabled fans. Can be from a club perspective, but can as well be on a national level. And we work as well in promoting the employment of disabled people as well. Here we have a guidebook which you can download on our website, which gives them some ideas of how to create inclusive employment policies. We try as well to raise a topic on not only with clubs and FAs, but as well on a larger scale, to raise awareness about the topics of access and inclusion. And those are just some examples where I've been in the last months presenting those topics. In September, for example, at the EU Stadium and Security Conference, where we've been discussing about the importance of accessible toilets, showing clearly that if you don't have an accessible toilet at a football stadium, that it disables a person to go to a football match. We've been at the UEFA Club Licensing Workshop and the UEFA Supporters Liaison Officer Workshop, as well discussing with people and presenting the role of the Disability Access Officer, talking about the importance. We have been at the UEFA Group Study Seminar on Diversity and Inclusion, where we talked as well about the role of the Disability Access Officer, and delivered as well a training on disability inclusion and etiquette. And on the European Football for Development Network conference, there were like a grouping of people from the CSR departments, from clubs, and we've been discussing with them how to integrate the role of the Disability Access Officer into their often already existing corporate social responsibility activities. For example, like I've heard at the FA, or we're working here in disability football. So yeah, that's if you do provide kind of those activities already in your clubs, it's a good possibility to work together and get the people with the disabled people with whom you're already in touch to make them become your fans and come to the stadium. So talking about the role of the Disability Access Officer, how did this come together? Why is this some new requirement? And what's the idea of it? So first of all, like it's in the UEFA club licensing and financial fair play regulations. There are two statements mostly. It says every club has to appoint a Disability Access Officer, and the Disability Access Officer will work on access and inclusion. And he shall work with all departments in the club to improve on this. The idea behind putting these new regulations, which has been about 2 years ago, was that at the moment like we said, it has happened on the bigger UEFA events, but to improve it really on a European scale in all clubs, we want to do something on each club level. So that's why the UEFA decided together with us to put this into their licensing criteria. And after more than 1 year, they saw a little bit what I understood as well the case at the moment in Iceland. This was just like a ticking box exercise, and that's why the UEFA, they decided, okay, they want to even work more closely with us to give clubs, to give FAs a better understanding about the necessity of a disability access officer, in which way this can be beneficial for a club. And so we provide the training about the role of the disability access officer, and hopefully a lot of clubs will join and make this really an active role in the clubs. We just launched as well in October this handbook about the role of the disability access officer. Explains the role, gives some ideas about the recruitment process. So a good starting point for informing you as well. And I will just make a short summary about the content of this handbook, but before I give the chance to talk a little bit about the situation in Iceland from what I've heard from Hauke. So it has been put as well in the national regulations. Similar, every club has to appoint a disability access officer, and similar, the disability access officer shall meet with a person from all departments to work on the topics. It's now one of the main topic for this year in the licensing process. So we will work together with Hauke as well to support you on the longer run with regards to this topic. What could be an option, for example, from a CAFE side, if you want to see, for example, what's happening in other countries who are already working for a longer time, I'm happy to, please feel free to get in touch with me. You say you want to travel to see a disability access officer at work in another club. I'm happy to facilitate this. I mean, the cost would have been on your side, but just to get you in touch with other clubs, that's definitely a good thing. I've been following a couple of disability access officers, and it's really interesting to see the daily life because it varies a lot from one club to another. I encourage you very much to take part in our so-called CAFE Week of Action, which is like an awareness campaign about the topics of access and inclusion. I want to talk a little bit later about this. But first, I want to just give the quick chance to Alexander and Olafur, who are there with us today, to talk about a research study they did on the topic of access and inclusion in Iceland already.
Einn þriðji af öllum völlum, eða öllum stúkum reyndar að sagt, ekki öllu svæðinni, var óaðgengileg hjól. Og sama hlutfall var góðar sjónlínur, eins og einhverju sáu við á myndinni á hann, að ef einhver stendur upp fyrir framan ykkur, þá er sjónlínan að fara. Þannig að það bara að hafa það sem byrja.
Já, ástæður við viljum gera þetta hefur verið svolítið, það hefur ekkert verið mikið gert í þessu á Íslandi og eins og hann sagði hérna þá þetta bara okkar mannréttindi að fá allir séu með og já,
þetta er fyrsta skipti sem við gert í Evrópu. Það má bara hafa það ekki. Þannig að það er ekki komin neinn reynsla á þetta ennþá, svo sem ekki. Og þó einhver, þó tölum það lítið illa út, þá er þetta ekki áfellisdómur yfir neinu. Þetta er bara, þetta bara sýnir það að það er rými til framfara. Það stærsta ástæðan fyrir þessu það vantar reglugerðir. Þannig að það sjálfsagt ekki skrítið að hlutinni séu eins og þeir eru. Sem er svona eiginlega stærsta niðurstaðan hjá okkur.
Hvernig er staðan á nýbyggðu stúkunum?
Nýjustu stúkurnar eins og til dæmis á Fylki þær eru langbestar. Þær eru alls ekki fullkomnar.
En það er einhver hugsun þar á bakvið?
Já, það er allavega þeir voru meira það er alls ekki fullkomnir meðstæðar.
Valsvöldur, fyrstulega nýr?
Já, valsvöldur er mjög flottur nema það var bara helmingurinn. Það er bara, í stúkunni er bara sæti fyrir þá sem er í hjólastól bara fyrir gestina, ekki heima með. Nema þá inni í boxi, ekki á stuðningsmanna. Til dæmis. En annars það er lyfta og það er nóg pláss.
En allstaðar er ómerkt.
Já, og allstaðar, öllum völlum er allt ómerkt.
Já. Af því þetta hefur ekki virkinn.
Já.
Sem þá.
Notuðu þið þennan dækling hér til viðmiðunar?
Ég gera það.
Þetta er bara...
Þið hafið hann fyrir nokkur.
Svo þessi viðgerðum, okkar, þetta var alltaf að loka okkar til okkur í skólanum, en þess að við vorum aðalega að skoða var fyrir hjólastóla, en ekki heyrnarlaus eða sjónskerta eða eitthvað svoleiðis.
Hvað var algengasta vandamálið og hvað var það sem hafði mest áhrif?
Það var það að komast ekki í stúkuna. Það er svona, kannski ekki algengasta vandamálið, en það var klárlega stærsta.
Algengast er náttúrulega bara merkingar þar sem þið segja.
Já, það vantaði að merkja stæði alls þar. Og svo kannski má nefna það þessi byggingarreglugerðin okkar, hún nær bara yfir hluta af þessu við skoðum, en hún talar ekkert fóta. Þannig að bílastæði og klósett og svoleiðis, það var í langflestum tilfellum bara í ágætis ástandi. En það sem við höfum ekki reglugerðir neitt annað, þá var það mjög misjafnt.
En móttökurnar?
Það eru bara yfirleitt þeim. Og bara eiginlega, já, ég held til
Tók allir verið á móttökur og virtist allir mjög áhugasamir að breyta þessu.
Þú segir allir mjög áhugasamir, sko. Ég reikna kynum, bergur eitt koma svona. Þá var dóttir mín að spila á símamótinu fyrra. Ég ætlaði að reyna að sjá yfir völlin. Þetta var við Kópavogi, Breiðablik. Ég held að ég fari örugglega rétt með að lyfta gekk ekki á allar hæðir, maður hefði líkil á eitthvað svona búlsíð.
Það var ekkert þegar við fórum, þá var það ekkert þessu. Það fórum allar hæðir og þeir skoðum þetta alltaf.
Já, en hefur það ekki bara verið búið átt?
Já, það er ekki að verið
sér.
Það er alltaf út af til að stoppa aðgengi að leikmannafengi og öðru.
En maður bara veldi fyrir sér, manni finnst svo mikið hræðsla við að hafa þetta opið af því að það er, eins og þú segir, einhver ástæða fyrir því. En þá getur þá aftur móti takmarka aðgengi rosalega mikið fyrir okkur sem að nota stólan.
En það eru bara að skoða áhörður, ekki leikmenn eða foreldra eða starfsmenn eða eins og þess.
Bara brilljant verkefni.
Ég er að spá, ég hef ekki séð verkefnið ykkar. Eru þið með hugmyndir í lok verkefnis það sem betur maður fara? Eins og til dæmis maður sér fyrir sér, þess að við gerst bara í öðrum byggingum, að það er fólk hérna á Íslandi sem er búið að sérhæfa sig og er tilbúið til að koma að svona tekningum og aðrir en byggingafulltrúar og aðrir svoleiðis. Var sem sagt, tóku eftir því í sambandi við hönnun og svona fleira, það hafi verið aðilar sem að sáu smáatriðin og voru bara með þessi sem þið sjáu síðan þegar þið komið, eða?
Svo er kannski ekki mjög djúpt í það. Það er bara, það er svolítið félagana að útfæra.
Svo við höfum sagt, þá erum við ekki verkfræðingar eða eitthvað svoleiðis, þá við viljum láta fagfólki saman hana. En við gerðum texta fyrir, í skýrslunum okkar fyrir hvert félag, með hugmyndum frá okkur, hvað er hægt að laga. En það er alltaf, eins og við segjum, við erum ekki sérfræðingar í þessu. En þetta er allt úr backingnum frá þeim, þannig að endilega skoða það þegar þið fáum það í hendurnar.
Kannski eitt í viðbót, meina, það er væntanlega næsta skref hjá okkur eiga fundum bæði mannvirkjastofnun og ráðuneytinu, því að mannvirkjastofnun semur alltaf reglurnar, ráðuneytinu alltaf býttar upp á það. Það er ekki til í eitthvað svoleiðis samtala, bara samstarf.
Það er mjög til í það. Og ykkur öllu með þjóðfráðan saman. Það er ykkur.
Ef að vanta merkingar á alls þar, þá kom næst senasta glæran hjá honum á hann var mjög athyglisverður. Það er máttur textans, að hann sé jákvæður. Þetta er náttúrulega alveg dauðafæri fyrir íþróttirnar að hafa jákvæða texta. Er þetta mjög gott fyrir framhaldi. Ef að til dæmis fótboltinn byrjar á því að hafa svona jákvætt orðfæri á völlanum.
Klálega. En til að skoða þetta bara og sjá hvað þið getið gert. Það þarf ekki að vera mikið til að byrja með.
Ég hjó eftir einu hjá Alex áðan sem er nefnilega góður punktur fyrir okkur alla að hugsa. Að þetta var fyrir áhorfendur en ekki sem sagt íþróttafólk eða foreldrar fleiri. Það er einmitt sko betra stundum að skilja svona hluti að setja sig í spor að það eru foreldrar sem eiga jafnvel landsliðsmenn, foreldrar í þjónustum. Þá svona verður umræðan breiðari og þetta verður ekki bara þannig að koma þeim við sem eru að starfa á málefnum fatlaðra. Ég held að þetta sé bara punktur sem eigi að nota meira í umræðinni.
Eru til einhver drög eða hugmyndir af einhverju lágmarkskröfum? Það er nú að tala svo þið rétt á hann að það væri í reglugerðin, þá eru kröfur klósett og þess að það en eru til einhverju hugmyndir eða drög að einhverju sem yrði viðmið eða lágmarkskröfur? Því að mikið af því sem var kynnt áðan er eitthvað sem á kannski illa við í okkar litlu klúbum með 500 til 1000 áhorfendur. Þetta snýst nú allt krónur og aura.
Mér finnst einmitt að listin ykkar sé að koma með. Það fengur svo feedback eftir að koma heimsókn mjög góður. Og ég fann það beint inn á bæjarskrifstofu bara og þú vantar þetta.
Þannig er einmitt allt úr bæknum. Ég held að það var ekki 1% af stúkunni á að vera aðgengilegur sætum.
Þú veist, þú beggja megin.
Já, beggja megin. Það má dreifa því eins og þið viljið þá sko en segjum að sé 1000 manna stúka þá er það 10 sætum.
Það er samt allt á lágmarki 6.
Já, lágmarki 6.
Ritgerðin ykkar er aðgengileg inn á KSÍ. Hún er inn á KSÍ vefnum. Við sendum okkur hann. Þannig að maður fór beint í hana og maður nummer 20.
Þið segja lágmarki 6 og hámarki 10?
Nei, lágmarki 6.
Lágmarki 6.
Eða ekki lágmark eða 1%. Þannig að ef þið eru með 500 manna stúku þá er það 6. En ef þið eru með 700 manna stúku þá er það 7. Það er 1%.
Ég man ekki eftir ég á að tekja glerinn á móti 2 í hjólastofu.
Það þýðir bara ekki að hugsa svona.
Nei, ég veit það. Ég er alveg sammála því.
Það er eins og hann sagði áðan fyrir hádegi að það eru upplýsingar á síðunni hjá okkur.
Það kemur enginn í að koma fáir í ótryggt aðgengi.
þetta svo Alex hefur alltaf sagt að hann fer ekki það sem ekki aðgengi.
Já, þessu kemst ekki meðal áhuganda.
Ein spurning hérna. Við erum eitthvað frýtt fyrir hjólastóla og aðra sem hafa þurft einhverja aðstoð inn á völlin ef að stoppa það af og rukka fólki.
Sko, ég segi stundum sko, ef að aðstæðan fín, þá engin ástæða til þess að hafa.
Er þetta móðgun?
Kannski fyrir einhverjum. Það er alveg múður, en ekkert alltaf.
Sko við höfum verið með frítt, en við bjóðum heldur ekki upp á sæti undir þakki. Þú verður að sitja þarna fyrir framan. Ekki maður förum í breytingar upp á ábyggilega 20 milljóna.
Mín skoðan sko að ef aðgengi í lagi þá má bara rökka það saman, en ef það er, þú veist, eins og ég veit það er ekki tak, þá má alveg gefa afslátt eða ábyggilega afslátt. Það er bara mín skoðun.
Til dæmis á hérna í Evrópukeppnum, heimsmeistarakeppninni, það er Júf og FIFA rukka hjólastólanotandann, en þú þarft að borga með það fyrir rukka hjólastólamanneskjuna, en aðstofmaðurinn fær frítt. Þannig er línan hjá Júf og FIFA.
Það er kannski að fá að bæta við hérna Jochen Kemmer starfsmann mannverkefnastjóri KSÍ. Þegar þessi stúka var endurreist fyrir 10 árum, þá voru engar teikningar eða ráðleggingar frá Júf að hafa. Við tókum svolítið með að hvað hefði verið áður á landsleikjum. Þá voru við alltaf með þessi einstaklingar niður á braut með sínum aðstofamönnum, sem kostaði það að það var mjög erfitt að koma í salernisaðstöðu hjá okkur. Þannig að þeir hefðu hvorki aðgengi að salernum veitingahúsum. Þeir hafa aldrei borgað inn, en það er ekki markmiðið heldur hjá okkur. Núna settum við 20 stæði samtals í sigurum enda, en þeirra eru minni leikir, bikarúrslit, kvenna eða framleikirnir, og setja þeir raun út í enda, einir. Þannig að aðstæðan er náttúrulega ekki boðleg þannig. En núna er svona í bígerð, veit ég, nokkri vellir. Þannig að þessar upplýsingar fara örugglega allar inn í mannvirkjanefndina og munum koma einhverja leiðbeiningar á í samráði við náttúrulega þessi samtök og þau verður örugglega kallað eftir. Það verður örugglega ekki fyrir KSÍ ekki núna, en við veitum alveg að KR er að hugsa nýja völl, KA er að hugsa nýja völl, Fjölnir er að fara að gera breytingi á sér, þannig að þetta nái inn í svoleiðis breyting.
Okay, you just try to explain approximately what you're talking about. Just from our perspective, how do we see it? And what we have done we've done a survey to fans about this, and like in the survey which we asked them about ticket prices, and like the result was like 88% of all fans wanted to pay for it, disabled fans wanted to pay for it. So first of all, I can recommend you to conduct a similar survey here. It might be, maybe the responses might be different, but generally we recommend, if you provide a good service to disabled fans, charge them the normal price. If you have a bad service, for example bad sidelines, then you can have a reduced price, because like as if in some stadiums, for whatever reason, the sidelines or the view is not so good, so the prices are cheaper, independent from whether this is a disabled person or not. So that's my recommendation on that topic. Maybe one question, will all of you stay as well for the presentation afterwards, or who's staying for the next presentation? Okay, not many, then I will still talk about this. So what is the DAO, the Disability Access Officer? What do we see his role? So he shall advise and support the club on all disability access matters. This can be like, for example, on the informing himself on the building regulations. This can be how can we make inclusive employment policies. This can be doing surveys with disabled fans. What are their needs? So she shall be in touch with all a big variety of stakeholders and try to improve access and inclusion. So it's important that this person is not only a tick box exercise, but really a person who is an interest in the topic and motivated to make some changes. We see him as the first point of contact for all fans, collecting the information, collecting the needs through surveys, through personal discussions. What are the needs to improve? For example, about, as you mentioned, the ticket prices, and he shall interact between the club and all disability stakeholders. So she shall be in touch with disability NGOs, with the FA, and yeah, really get a better understanding of the topic. And he shall as well promote internally and externally the topic, which means he has maybe to discuss with the security manager, he has to discuss with the ticketing department, with the communication department, to say, okay, I want to do an article about this, what can we do? Can we set up a communication strategy of how can we on a regular basis bring this topic on the plate? How can we communicate positively on this? So it's an internal and external communication. We mentioned earlier how we don't have any disabled fans, so if you communicate about it, they will come. So just summing up a little bit with who's the DAO in contact. As far as I know, there's no Disabled Supporters Association yet, but that might be an option in the future to set some up, so then he's in touch with the fans to get an understanding of their needs, and he shall be in touch with if fans are traveling, so that he's in touch with the DAO and of the away club, if there's already one, to inform them if they travel to your stadium, to your city, how can they get to the stadium, what is the public transport, maybe as well what is accessible parking, what is maybe accessible hotels in the region. So really to provide all the information. Often, depending on the type of disabilities, disabled people have a higher need of planning their journeys, so it's important to provide this information upfront so that you don't disable them for coming to the game. She shall be in touch with the senior management, and I think it's as well important to see that there's not only one person fighting alone for the topic, but there's as well the senior management supporting him, first of all in enabling all the discussion with the different departments, but as well maybe, for example, creating a charter on access and inclusion within the club to show really that this is a topic which is important to you. He can be in touch with all people from the club, doing like the trainings we did this morning about disability inclusion, etiquette, in touch with the ticketing and PR department about communication, but as well how to create an accessible ticketing policy. For example, what do we do with the companion, where shall he be seated, how to order the tickets, things like this. In touch with disability organizations, communicate, bring them, work together with them, for example, on giving their feedback on how to make the stadium accessible, as well make some events together with them to bring those disabled people to the stadium. Sorry. I don't want to give too much responsibility to Holger, but so if you have questions as well, I hope we'll work together that the FA gives you some more support as well in the future on this topic, providing maybe further trainings, that you have maybe as well the chance to meet on a regular basis, to exchange on your experiences, and feel always free with your questions as well to contact us from CAFE on this topic. Just very quickly, but I think it's important as well that this role is taken seriously by a club. So I mentioned like it's important that there's a senior management who supports this person and not only one person fighting alone. I don't want to necessarily say that it must be a paid staff member. Can somebody who shares a function within the club. It can as well be a volunteer, but I mean it should be a person who has at least have a kind of financial compensation for his efforts. For example, if he has to travel to an away game with disabled fans and the material expenses he has. For example, I asked earlier, apparently, for example, wheelchair users, like it's a country where it's not so warm, so if you cannot move, stand up, it's quick that you become cold in the stadium. So easy solutions can be just, for example, to provide a blanket for your wheelchair users in the stadium to make their stadium experience more enjoyable, and there, if those costs should as well be covered by the club and not by the disability access officer on his personal expenses. Yeah, and important as well that the club gives the person, the disability access officer, the right to discuss with different staff members, and that he's involved if there are any changes, if there's a new ticketing policy, if there's a new PR measure, PR initiatives or building measures who have done, he should be involved, and as well you have the chance to give his idea about it. So luckily we're not letting you entirely alone on this topic, so we are supporting clubs, we're doing training as we did this morning, we are doing training on the role of the disability access officer, we're doing training on audio descriptive commentary, we're doing trainings on color blindness, and now since like I started with Cafe half a year ago, with the ideas to collect as well best practices from all clubs all over Europe. So the idea is that we launch in the next couple of months a newsletter to disability access officers where we show some examples what is happening in each club to give you an idea. We have a European Disability Access Office Facebook group where I invite you quarterly to join, and which is well formed to share stories, to share best practices. And we're trying to create other networking opportunities. For example, now with the EuroLeague and Champions League next round, we have like exchange meetings between disability access officers. But as I mentioned before, like if you want to, for example, we have a club not too far away in Elfsborg in Sweden who are very much advanced already on the topic. If you want to join their disability access officer on a game to see what is he already doing, then please feel free to contact me, and I'll try to organize a meeting. And we will I hope we get the financial commitment of the UEFA. We want to do a first European meeting, networking event between disability access officers in November, where we bring disability access officers from all over Europe together to one event so that they can share their experiences. So I just want to give you some ideas what's happening already around Europe. Both the Austrian League and the Swiss League, they launched audio descriptive commentary. So they had a week of action where they introduced that, where they communicate what is audio descriptive commentary, and they had it like all football clubs had it on their website. They started not, this was the Swiss League, the Austrian League, they have it at the moment in 4 stadiums. It's partially financed by the league, partially financed by the clubs. So a good topic which has a lot of media interest. We worked in August. We met with the Russian Federation, who just started a new strategy on access and inclusion. So they are currently working on an infrastructure guideline, which gives like the minimum requirements for clubs, what they have to be done in their stadiums. We're doing linked to the World Cup stadium access appraisals of all stadiums for the World Cup. They have just put it into the regulations for this season starting now, the role of the disability access officer. They hired a disabled person for their media and communications department, so a lot of things happening there. Good example, for example, RB Leipzig in Germany. In Germany, it's a big interest from the deaf community into football, and so they had already for various years a deaf fan club with more than 400 members. So they said we do want to provide a special services for them. So now they provide sign language interpreters at the stadium. They have one who's commentating on the main screen, and one who's like, this is particularly because they made a survey with them, and the fans said they want to sit all together in a club, in one sector of the stadium. So not saying that this is the best solution, but they particularly wished for that. So they have one block with one commentator, a sign language interpreter, who's commentating, for example, what are the fans singing, what's happening, what are the stadiums, the speakers saying, and giving some other information as well about security measurements, for example. We're working currently with the FA in Gibraltar, who are in the process of constructing a new stadium, and this stadium shall be fully accessible and shall be an example really to Europe. They want to use it for a lot of concerts, a lot of other social events. Some good things happening as well in, for example, at Arsenal, Middlesbrough. They installed sensory rooms, which are basically particular rooms for autistic people with particular lights, calming music, so that autistic fans can go to the football stadium as well, without having like the noise of the crowd all the time, so that they can enjoy the game at the same time, and their parents and friends can go to the stadium as well. Just want to give you a quick overview as well about other projects we are doing, and as I said, like I want to cordially invite you to our Cafe Week of Action, which is an awareness campaign about access and inclusion. Everybody can participate, all clubs, all disability organizations, even an individual person, league, everybody can participate. And we have like a handbook for this as well, where we have a lot of examples of what would be done, but in the end of the day, we're very open to all types of participation. It's just important that we want to celebrate access and inclusion all over Europe. We started in 2012 with it, where we had 2 countries joining. Last year we had 20 countries joining, and now for this year we are very positive to reach the 30 at least. It's already in less than 2 months, so if you're interested in this, download the information brochure about this, and just write us an email that you want to participate, and then we can discuss more in detail. Just to give you some ideas what's happening on those days, on the top left-hand side you see Barcelona, who participated last year, and for example they had like as player escort, they had disabled fans, they had an announcement of both captains of the games. They had on all screens all around the stadium, in the VIP tribune, all in the stadiums, they had messages about that they're supporting this initiative. So it was all in the local and national newspapers, big media presence for this topic. In Germany, Werder Bremen, for example, they participated last year, and they, for example, made a full inclusion day. So they hired people to work on the kiosk, for example, disabled people to work on the kiosk. They hired people to work on the, I hope I'm using it right, on the mowing, how do you say, like treating the grass, on the grass. Yeah, oh, sorry? Yeah, groundkeeping, sorry. They had as well player escort, disabled people as player escorts. They had the introduction of a new tribune. Before there were not all tribunes accessible for audio descriptive commentary. One new tribune was initiated on audio descriptive commentary. I mentioned early on before the Cafe Week of Action in Switzerland, where they launched the audio descriptive commentary, and in 2015, where we had in Poland like the special event with more than 1,000 disabled people, and we just launched last year as well our new mascot for the Cafe Week of Action, which is Max Access. So just to give you some ideas what could be done, all types of events with disabled fans, pre-match and halftime ceremonies, a creation of new disabled supporters group. This can as well be only a survey to your fans, providing some new services, inclusive service, accessible services, or just communicate about. You ask disabled fans about their match experience, and you communicate about the story. You maybe start working on the role of the disability access officer. Now you just say that this person has newly been hired for the role. You have maybe some players who want to make a statement on this topic. You want to create a video. For example, now we are as well turning a video with Manchester City, where they talk about the fan experience of a disabled fan. So lots of possibilities, and just have a look at our handbook. Want to encourage you as well to think about the topic of a disabled supporters association. So at the moment we have more than 100 in Europe, in various countries. The idea, as I said, it's really to bring out the voice of the disabled fans, to understand better their needs, and have them tell you what they need. As well, this could be something interesting on a national level. So, for example, now with the FIFA World Cup, or potential participation in future international events, that the travel to away games for national games will be made easier from a national level. And there we support you. We have published an information document just as well end of last year about how to create a Disabled Supporters Association, and we promote all the stories of those DSAs on our website, and we've created a European DSA Facebook group as well, with the idea of exchanging between the DSA what are the things, what they wish, how we can work together as well on an international level. So just to sum up again, I really highly want to encourage you to join and start working in this area. I think they're really nice stories always to tell, and I've been working in the world of disability sports for 15 years now, and I'm always very much touched by the experience. For me, it's always a great moment, a great story, a great moment to share. When I can see, I can give somebody, as I mentioned earlier, the story of Joyce Cook as well. When we can support somebody to give new hope and to make a big change in society. So I really can encourage you to start working in this area. Thank you.
Right.
Do you have any questions at the moment?
So we should maybe take 3-4 minutes to get a cup of coffee.